We know you have a lot on your holiday to-do list. And at the UPS Store, we're here to help with our pack and ship guarantee. Your gifts will arrive intact or you'll be reimbursed. Got holiday cards to print? We're also the premier printing store. We've got everything you need for every way you holiday. Visit the upsstore.com/guarantee for full details. Most locations are independently owned. Product, services, prices, and hours of operation may vary. See Center for details. The UPS Store. Be unstoppable. Come into your local store today.
On this episode of Bantha Milk Podcast, it's the day after Star Wars Day.
Revenge of the Fifth.
Intro music.
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession.
Fashion. I'm just going to keep saying fashion the whole show. Fashion.
I wonder how long we could get away with that.
Fashion.
Before, like who's out there listening to us that would last the longest?
That would last the longest.
Just sitting there like, is this going to change? And
Right,
They, just,
like,
they take the phone and they drag the bar forward 20 minutes and it's still
And it's
fashion.
like, fashion.
All right, well, they got me. All
I
right.
think Eric would be the only one that would last through the whole thing to see when are they going to actually start talking. It'll be like our Andy
Andy Warhol,
not Andy Warhol.
Andy Griffith,
Nope, not Andy Griffith. Andy,
I don't know. I'm just
the guy
naming
on
Andys I
Taxi.
know.
Who is the Andy on Taxi?
Oh, that guy. I don't remember. Jim Carrey played him.
Jim Carrey did play him, yes. But who was he
I
originally?
don't. Was his name Andy?
I thought it was Andy.
I don't think it's Andy.
I think Taxi. It is
Kaufman or
Andy Kaufman.
Andy Kaufman. You're right. Yeah, Andy
See,
Kaufman.
there
yeah,
we go.
You are
Boom. Good job pulling that one out.
Yeah.
Kaufman. Yes.
All right.
Yeah, Andy Kaufman was notorious in his stand-ups. I don't know how much you knew. Did you watch the Jim Carrey thing? So you,
Yeah, I
kinda
didn't. I didn't.
understood.
I actually didn't watch the movie, but I know enough about Andy Kaufman just as a.
Yeah, like he
Pop
decided
culture icon.
at one of his stand-up shows he was just going to read a book the whole time.
Well, from what I understand, his whole shtick was like, he didn't care how he made people. He was like, I'm selling the bit. You know,
yeah,
like this
yeah.
is
No
this
matter
is the
what
bit.
you think about it, I'm going to sell it regardless.
Yeah. So wasn't he like didn't he join the WWF at one point?
So
Wasn't he
this
like the
was
champion or
before
something?
this was before WWF, but it was the Memphis Wrestling League before
Yeah.
WWF became a thing.
Just essentially
yeah,
David
he-
Arquette becoming the WCW champion. Is the
Yeah,
same thing.
yeah, it was the same thing as that. But he wanted to start wrestling. He was doing a lot of wrestling women, and then I forget Jerry the King Lawler.
Oh, that's right.
He
Yeah,
was-
that's right.
He was like the running the league or whatever. So then he started to he was calling him out and saying, oh, you can't wrestle. I'm going to beat you. Come on,
So
let's
he
go.
fought Jerry the King Lawler, right? That was his match, right?
And that was his match, and he even on the David Letterman, when David Letterman was at the 12:30 time slot, they had them both on, and Andy Kaufman challenged him right there, and he gave him a wrestling slap to the chest.
Oh yeah.
And then Jerry the King Lawler picked him up and body slammed him through the desk or something like
Love
that.
it.
And to this day, nobody really knows who was involved, because if you saw David Letterman's reaction, he was like, "Stop this!"
Right.
Somebody, whatever. So they're still not sure, because the way Kaufman was, they weren't even sure if he thought wrestling was real, because when
Right.
he was wrestling the women, he really was selling it big time. But,
Yeah.
So he was a very interesting dude. But yeah,
You
so
can catch more on our Andy Kaufman podcast that comes out 4 times a month.
that's right.
We have a lot of things to say. There's a lot of content when it comes to Andy Kaufman.
There
It just
is.
keeps churning out. But
Yeah, well, it doesn't keep churning out.
that's the thing. He recorded all these things, and just him being who he is,
Right.
he time released them.
It's
Put
like
them in a
the
vault.
secret, the Beatles albums
That's
that they
right.
just found now. There's all this Andy Kaufman stand-up stuff that nobody knew about.
That's right. And we're 5 minutes here into our Star Wars Day podcast.
Yes.
And we have just now started talking
Started
Star
talking
Wars.
about Star
Probably.
Wars.
Well, maybe not. Let's talk more Kaufman. So Andy Kaufman. Anyway,
Andy Kaufman.
I did like Taxi as a kid.
I did too.
It was on Nick at Night, don't you know?
It was.
Um,
I remember. I'm old enough to remember
When it was not on
sneaking
Nick at Night?
downstairs when it was on regular time, and I was supposed to be in bed, and my parents were like, "Get back upstairs,"
Sure.
and I would stand there and just keep watching it for as long as I could until I got yelled at twice.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I remember.
Well, Taxi, man.
Taxi.
Tacos.
Good times.
But we're not here to talk about Taxi, Rob. We're here to talk about the Star War.
All
of the Star Wars.
One of them.
Every single one of them.
All
of the Star War. But it is Revenge of the Fifth, which I always like. People say, which I get, it's fine. But I think Revenge of the Sixth is better.
It sounds a little bit better.
So like they got to figure out something else for the fifth.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know what it would be.
I don't know what it would be.
That being said, Happy Star Wars Day. How did you spend yours, Rob?
I did watch the Tales of the Empire.
Nice. Yes.
I did
good
watch
stuff.
that. I didn't watch much of anything else, but I did watch Tales of the Empire. I was doing a little healing. Have a giant stitches on top of my head right now.
Is the hat like? Does that protect?
Well,
that
the
from
hat
anything,
is
or?
it's protecting the viewers from seeing it.
He didn't give me that same luxury earlier. I'll
No,
tell
you
that.
got to see it first.
I didn't see anything.
You didn't
it looked
see
fine.
anything?
It
Yeah,
just looked like you had like your hair was kind of like
it
in
was
hat
just
head.
a mess. Yeah. I did go to the gym today. Because like yesterday I didn't go. Because I was
Better go,
afraid
man.
of like
That's gonna affect
sweating
my
and
pocketbook.
getting. I know. So don't you worry about that. I will.
If there's anyone on your team I know who's going to take it seriously, I know it's you, Rob.
Exactly. But yeah. So
I've been yelled. I will oftentimes when Pagan, and I'm sure she's mentioned this
She
to you.
was telling
She
me.
was talking about like getting ice cream. I'm going to tell Rob on
I'm
you.
telling Rob. What would Rob do? Yeah.
Rob would yell at you is what he'd do.
That's right. So,
But Star Wars Day, yeah. So we watched Tales of the Empire this morning.
Okay.
With me and Pagan and the Vange.
okay.
And then yesterday I was on LBI yesterday for my niece's communion.
Oh yes. You
So
didn't watch it during the communion.
I did not. I was too busy getting like yelled at by the ushers. I'll tell you what. I forgot. It's been a long time since I've been to a Catholic mass. I went all my childhood. I forgot. Like Catholicism's the one where they don't have to be nice to you.
No, not even
They're
a little
allowed
bit.
to be mean to you. Like
Yeah.
everyone else is like we want y'all. Come on in. We're nice.
Catholicism
Catholicism's
is
like,
you will be here and you will pay us
That's
to
right.
be here.
I'm there with my child, an infant in a stroller,
Right.
taking a nap, and she's like, "You're gonna have to move this."
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "Oh, well then."
You're like, well, she's sleeping. I don't care.
I thought she was
She's
gonna
in
take a
the
ruler
aisle.
out and
Yeah.
slap my knuckles with
Yeah,
it.
she's in the way. Move her.
For real though. But yeah, no, it was. So that was that. I didn't get much celebrating. I did do a thing, and I have finally not only started. It's been a while. I have finished Jedi Survivor.
Oh, okay.
So what I would like to do at one of these points, I want to run down kind of the.
No, we're getting.
That's not what you want.
Nope.
I would like to run down the plot and the game plan, both of them.
Okay. You were saying you finished Jedi Fallen Order.
Well, yes, Fallen Order was the first game. Survivor's the second game. Something is playing on Rob's YouTube. We are professionals.
We are professionals.
What I would like to do is like a rundown of both the synopsis of both games. From what I understand, there's supposed to be a third game too. And then I'd love to, because now I might have the hardware for it, I'd love to try and do some streaming of me playing New Game Plus on
that'll be fun.
Jedi
on like
Grandmaster
Twitch.
level.
Do you want to do it on Twitch?
that, or I think we have a Bantha Milk Twitch.
We do.
You might have gotten like an alert the other day that I had tried to sign into it. I actually maybe not, because I tried to log in and I couldn't remember what the password is.
Okay.
Either way,
Do you want me to tell you the password? 123.
that's the same combination I have on my luggage. So yeah, it was a great game. I'll look forward in the next couple of weeks here to maybe reviewing it on here in more depth, talking about the story,
In-depth.
talking about
So
the
was
gameplay.
this wasn't the was this the latest one that came out on PS5?
Yes.
But then what were you playing it on PC? No. You got a PS5?
So I have a year of no interest to pay it off.
Okay, there you
But
go.
we have a Best Buy card.
Yes.
And my wife is too nice to me. and in that, like, literally, and I it's not like I lied. I essentially said, listen, my entire life I've played video games, and that's my way of relaxing. And they've literally stopped making new video games for PlayStation 4.
Sure.
Like it's
So-
done.
Yeah. So you
like,
have no
I
way
have
of
no
playing.
new ones to play. And she was like, yeah, I get it. And so now I have PS5.
All right. Well,
And
just
I
make
felt
sure.
like every time I play it, I feel awful.
So
I'm playing it like feeling terrible, like I should
Feeling
not
guilty?
own it. Yeah, it's buyer's.
Look.
I never buy anything for myself, and still
Right.
it's just like,
but you have a whole year.
yes.
And as a former Best Buy employee, make sure you pay it off. in the end.
yeah. Otherwise, I can look
Because
forward
if
to
you
all
don't,
that interest.
yes, you will get all that interest back
Oh,
at the
yeah.
end of the year.
Oh, yeah.
So, whatever it was,
It's like $400, I think.
$400.
Which, it's like
yeah. So
$20 a month or something like that. I don't know.
I
I
think it
don't
would be
know how
more
that
than
works.
that. Yeah.
It's
so,
doable.
So make sure you do,
Yeah.
and it won't show up accurately. But at the very end, if you make sure you pay it all off in that time frame, then all the interest that says that you're accruing will be
Will
wiped off
just
of
go
your
away.
account. Yes. So,
Yeah.
but yes,
Tricks of the trade with Rob.
that's right. And did
but-
you buy the? Did they pressure you into the protection
I did
plan
not get
also?
the protection plan. I did not. I'll tell you, the Best Buy in Deptford is hurting. There
Okay.
was like 2 people working in the entire store.
Wow.
So I
Did they
think
even ask?
No.
When I was there, now this is also going back
20 years.
25. I'm trying to think if I was just out of college. I think I was still in college. I'm talking like 98, somewhere between 98 and 2000. When I was working there, they were really pushing us to sell it.
Sure.
And
I too remember when I was 12 and
Yeah.
that was going on.
And I was selling computers, and every Sunday there would be a computer that was on special, which we were selling it for less than we paid for it. So we
Sure.
were losing money on every one, but we had to sell the protection plans. So they told us, if you let one go without even the 1-year protection plan, we're losing money. And not that you're going to get called into an office, but they're like going to be very angry.
Right.
So I remember one time telling a guy, I was like, "Oh, let me tell you about the protection." He's like, "Nah, I don't want to hear it." I'm like, "All right, I know you don't want to hear it, but just let me explain." He's like, "No," and then he's like, "If you tell me again, I'm walking out of here." And I'm like, "Perfect, like that's what I want to hear."
That's
'cause
fine.
We're losing money. The next guy behind you is going to buy this computer,
Yep.
and he's going to buy the protection plan.
So did he wind up walking out?
So I was like, let me just tell you one more thing. I was like, I'm telling you, you would be asinine not to get it. He goes, I don't want it. Ring it up. I'm leaving. I go, okay. He went up to the manager. He told the manager that I called him an ass, which I didn't. I said he would be asinine to not get it.
Sure.
So slight play on
Sure.
words. So the manager came by and he said, look, I love what you're doing. Your suggested sailing is awesome, but don't call the customers asses. I said, I didn't. He goes, nah.
You didn't, but you did.
But you did.
He can read between the
He
lines.
can read between the lines.
He's an ass. He's not dumb.
He's not dumb. So yeah. So that was one of my finer moments
I
of,
like that.
of sales tactics. And that one was like legendary in the store.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, like people were like, that's the guy that called the customer an asshole to his face. I'm like, I never said that.
But that's how it goes.
But that's how it goes. That's how it's,
your legend just grows.
Yeah, it just grows. Yeah.
You know, if you go back to that Best Buy, still to this day, they talk about Bobby.
Yes, the guy
that
Bobby
guy
who sold.
I hear he slapped the guy
That's what
and
happened.
put him in a chokehold until he agreed to the 4-year protection plan. We didn't even sell a 4-year
We didn't
protection
sell a 4-year protection plan, but he got him into two-year protection plans and told him it'll last for 4
Freaking
years.
Bobby, man.
That guy
He
Bobby
was a
was
legend.
Legend.
Legendary.
His name is on the wall.
It's just
So,
Bobby.
yep, just Bobby.
There's
So,
a mister in front of it. But, you know.
yeah. So okay. So what did you think of the graphics of the PS5 versus the graphics of the PS4?
It's so much different. It is
Okay.
so much better. Like, and honestly, for me, it's not necessarily graphics, and the graphics are so much better. They really are. But for me, the big thing that I hate in games that like drives me insane is loading screens.
Right.
I hate them so much.
I hate you have to download the whole game. This is going back when they were on DVDs and
Sure.
Blu-rays and stuff. You would get the game, you put it in, and then you have to wait 2 hours to download the whole thing, and then upload the updates and all that
Yep.
other good stuff. And then, like you said, first game you play and a loading screen.
Yep.
You're like, why
Or
is
I
there a
just- yeah.
loading screen? I just downloaded the entire game.
Yep. So PS5 loading screens are like night and day difference between the PS4. Like my PS4, it was on its last legs. I've owned that thing. I bought that when I lived in Louisiana, so probably 9 or 10 years, the same one, and I bought it pre-owned.
Okay.
So like it's seen
So it's
some
definitely
stuff.
seen its years. Yeah.
So like it sounded like a helicopter every time you turned it on. It was just like. But like in Jedi Survivor, you do a fast travel, where you're like, I want to be on this part of the map, and 5 seconds later you're on that part of the map.
Okay.
Like, it is a fast travel.
It is a fast
Any
travel.
fast travels in any games on PS4, I'd be like, all right, I'm going to go get a soda.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
it's like the wheel of
Yeah.
doom is just
Yep.
going around.
Even
and
like
around.
Elden Ring. Elden Ring is a super intensive game, and I didn't realize when I bought the PS4 version that you get an automatic upgrade to the PS5 version.
Okay.
So even on the PS5 version, on the PS5, the loading screens are so quick, and that was
Awesome.
my least favorite part of that game. Was I die so much because it's such a hard game,
Right.
and then you're just like twiddling your thumbs
you're
for
waiting
40
for- yeah.
seconds. But yeah, that was the big thing is like just the memory capability of like having so much able to be drawn so quickly.
Okay.
The other big thing with the PS5 is the controller, because it has the adaptive triggers.
Okay.
So like they act just like regular trigger buttons, but also for certain games you can have it so like it applies pressure, like back pressure to it.
Okay.
So like it can be harder to press or so like
cool.
I'm playing one game that I have for free on the PS Plus. It's called Returnal, which is like, it was like game of the year last year. It's
Okay.
a roguelike first person shooter. And like if you like the left trigger, if you hold it halfway, you zoom.
Okay.
But if you pull it the entire way, you do your guns like special.
Oh,
thing.
like it's special thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh-huh.
So like it just added like that's one of the big things with that is just that adaptive trigger thing. But the game itself was great. The gameplay itself was much better than the first one.
Okay.
The story was not as good as the first one. But
Oh,
again,
okay.
I'll go more into detail about the story, I
Okay.
think, when we can kind of do a deep dive. But
Yeah.
it was good still.
Okay.
It was just not as, I went into the first one with, I don't think, as huge expectations.
Okay.
And I was rewarded for that.
Okay.
And because it was so good, I went into this one with slightly bigger expectations, and I think I was
Yeah.
kind of swatted down for that.
Right, because you were like, oh, this is gonna be so
Yeah.
awesome.
But
Yeah.
it not in that it just like fell flat. It's just it wasn't telling that kind of story.
Okay.
It was telling a more small scale story, and clearly, and I've part of the good thing about playing it so much later than when it came out
Okay.
is that like people have been talking about it, and there are plans for a sequel already.
All right. Cool.
So like I believe the plan
This
for
is with
this,
Cal Kestis.
Mhm.
Okay.
I think the plan for the Cal Kestis story is a trilogy, and like if you look at this game like it's the second in a trilogy, it makes more sense.
Okay.
Like it's a more personal story. It's more about his growth and his brain and his.
And he
like,
finishes the
mental
game
state.
and stuck in carbonite.
Exactly. Yeah. One of his hands chopped off,
Yeah,
and
He kisses his sister.
he kisses his sister,
Yeah,
and
He finds out the bad guy's his dad.
all the Star Wars.
All
things.
the Star
every
Wars
single
things,
Star
yeah.
Wars thing.
And there's a
happens to
Wilhelm
Cal.
screen.
I
every
actually
single-
think there is a Wilhelm screen now that you mention it. You say that, but I'm pretty sure
There
I
has
like
to be.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be a Star Wars thing without
That's
a
right.
Wilhelm screen.
But yeah, it was great. I finished it too quickly.
Okay.
Um,
That's why you haven't texted me in
No,
4
well,
weeks.
Well, no, that's not shocking. I don't know what you're like surprised about that. And I have texted you. What I did notice is like I felt kind of bad. I was like, oh man, we were supposed to podcast, and then like you went radio silent. I'm like, oh man, and Peg's like, oh, he has COVID.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, well, I
Yeah.
feel a little better. I couldn't have podcasted with him anyway.
Yeah. You wouldn't have been
Um,
able to come over anyway.
yeah.
And then, yeah.
But
so-
anyway,
and
also,
volleyball's been
yeah,
crazy
and
right
I
now
know
as
you've
well,
been
yeah.
there. And I've been crazy. Life is crazy.
Yes.
Life is crazy for everyone.
Yep. And when
Um,
when we're making all the money that we're making off of this, we
Yeah, I mean,
we
The
go
ro-
a month in between episodes because
it lasts. I mean, what are we gonna do? I can't. There's only so much money I can make from my podcast.
right. Yeah.
I think when I get home, my wife would be like, Nick,
Yeah.
We gotta talk
we're
about how
making
much-
too much
how much money we're
Yeah.
making.
We have too many people listening to us. We're making way too
like
much
you're
money.
you're at work all day,
Yep.
and then you go and do this podcast at night, and you make
Make more money there.
Unspeakable money.
Unspeakable money. Yeah.
and it's a problem.
Yeah, it is a problem.
Yeah.
Uh,
Anyway, if you want to send money to Bantam Hill Podcast headquarters, you're welcome
we're
to do
poor.
so. We are poor. But it was Star Wars Day yesterday.
It was
and that
Star
is what we
Wars
should
Day
talk about.
yesterday.
I know both of us watched Tales of the Empire.
Yep.
There was the release of another Acolyte trailer.
Yes, which I
Um,
did not watch. Did
It's
you
good.
watch it?
Yeah,
It was good.
it looks good. There's some good stuff happening.
I'm excited for
um,
the Acolyte because there's Jedi,
Yeah.
which is what makes Star Wars different than everything else. Are the Jedi? Are the glowing swords?
Yeah, the space wizards.
Space wizards.
And I don't know why I was thinking about this. For whatever reason, TikTok has been sending like weird, different things to my algorithm recently. Not weird,
Okay.
but like different, like movie quote or movie scenes, like whole movie scenes. Like
Okay.
whatever. But they started pumping some Mandalorian scenes my way too, and it would be like scenes of Luke, and it was so weird to me for whatever reason. I'm sure we mentioned it on the podcast before, but thinking about, oh, it's Luke Skywalker. It's the main character of Star Wars.
Right.
It's the person we've seen the absolute least of now.
Yes, yeah.
Like he is the main character of Star Wars, and like for whatever reason they decided, oh, we can't touch Luke.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
we
it's
can't.
funny, like even like things are coming out now where Mark Hamill was saying, this is probably a while back now or whatever, but like how his character evolved in episode 7, 8, and 9
Right.
wasn't what he was anticipating, and like just the way they did Luke. I don't want to say they did him dirty,
I
but
think you can.
but just how they transformed him in the end of the series, and then like people loved him
Yep.
and people want more of him. And so when you can do a flashback, basically like what the Mandalorian is in the timeline,
Right.
you know, and you can bring him back into it, sure, why not?
Yeah.
Like, I remember when that ship first came in, we were like, yes,
Yep.
like this has to be him. And we were like, you know, everybody was speculating because they wanted to be the one to break the news that it wasn't Luke.
Right.
You know, they wanted, oh, it's got to be Ahsoka, or it's this, or it's that. But everybody deep down inside knew it was going to be Luke.
Except apparently for what's her name who played Bo-Katan. What's her
She
name?
didn't know. Katie Stackhouse?
Yes, Katie Sackhoff.
Sackhoff?
She has a podcast, and I just saw a video of her interviewing Ming-Na Wen.
Okay.
And apparently Katie was like, yeah, because they were very secretive, and like even R2 that they shot with,
Uh-huh.
like he was not R2 colored. He was
Okay.
like red and green or
All right.
green, like it was a completely different color. And they specifically didn't tell the actors who it was.
Okay.
And Katie Sackhoff was like, I thought it was Ki-Adi. I think she said, I thought it was Ki-Adi Mundi or something like that. That's who they
Okay.
told. That's who they told
That's
me
who
it
they
was.
told him it was going to be.
And Ming-Na Wen was like, oh, I knew.
I
You
know.
knew? I was like, I knew it was Luke Skywalker. Come on, with
Come on, who would it be?
Yeah, apparently,
like,
like Katie Sackhoff was remarkably naive about the entire thing. And I
Okay.
had no idea
That's so
until
funny.
they debuted it, and she like texted her. And she's like, "Did you know?"
did
Yeah.
you know this?
Yeah.
That's
So yeah, I guess we're not the only ones who love to see Luke.
yeah.
I just thought it was interesting, and I have for a while. It's like they're telling all these really great Star Wars stories, but wouldn't it be great just to tell us the damn story we've wanted for 40 years?
the one that we've actually wanted.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but-
exactly. Before we get into the other things, and maybe eventually we'll go back over this because you haven't seen the end of it, but I did watch the end of The Bad Batch. And Nick, you can close your ears for a minute. I'm not going to give away any spoilers per se, but it ended like the last 4 episodes were like the final big story arc. You know how they do the cartoons that way? It's like even with Mandalorian, like the first 3 episodes were a little mini story
Right.
arc. So the last 4, you know, I think we left off and Omega was captured again.
Yes.
Yes. So of course you knew they're going to try and go and save her. Like that's what the Bad Batch would do. So the last 4 episodes was basically
The rescue mission.
So it was very good. I'm not going to go into too much detail because everybody who's posted that I've seen who's posted on online about it without giving out spoilers said it was the best ending that they could do.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a very neat and tidy ending. It was good. I liked it. I liked how it ended. And then they did do a little bit of a flash forward, about 20 years or so. And then there was a lot of speculation as to when this took place, like how old was she? And somebody did the math and said, all right, at this point she's 28 years old. So if you did watch it at the very, very end, we'll say roughly she's about 28 years old at this time.
Okay.
And the scene that we see is what you think she's talking about going to.
Okay.
So I'm not going to tell you too much because whatever, but whatever. So it was very good. It was a very good rescue mission. I was hoping for a little bit more. Crosshairs did have a good redemption arc. It could have been a little bit better, but it was a good redemption arc. And who was the one? I forget the other guy that like fell early on in the season, and we never saw him again. It wasn't Echo because then Echo came back, but Tech. I was really hoping for a Tech return, but then everybody was like, obviously he's not coming back. Blah blah blah, whatever. So, but it did wrap up very nicely. So. Maybe our next one, you can check out the last 4 episodes, and we can do the whole thing and talk about it all in more depth. But it was a very good conclusion, and I did enjoy it. I did enjoy the whole season, and I think, like I said before, when I went back and rewatched seasons 1 and 2, it is a lot better viewed in big chunks.
Right.
1 episode a week. With the first season of The Mandalorian, we've talked about this 1,000 times. I was waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning to watch it. This, I was like, oh, it's Friday. I need to watch The Bad Batch, and I would eventually get to it. It was never cliffhangy enough that you wanted. I can't wait till next Wednesday.
Right.
And it was good, but it wasn't so good that you were like, I have to watch it.
Sure.
So that's that. So that's our spoiler-free review of The Bad Batch.
Series finale, right?
Series finale, yeah. So it's all done. There's really, and like they jumped ahead, so I guess if they wanted to, they could do a live action with her as a 28-year-old in the future. We're not really going to see much of the rest of the Bad Batch guys because they did age a lot.
Right.
But it could be like when we saw, who were the 3 that we saw in Rebels? Do you remember the clones that we saw?
Oh,
and we even saw Rex at one point as an older rebel.
Yeah,
so we could see them, popping into things as older characters, whatever, eventually.
Yeah, I tend to think that, and I could be wrong about this, but I tend to think that they're beginning the process of leaving this time period behind for a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Especially with the Acolyte starting. But then we're going back to the Mandalorian movie in a year
so,
or whatever.
It could be ending.
So,
maybe we'll see her in that, honestly. It's very easily that they're setting up that she's in,
the whole time we're like, oh, she's Force sensitive, blah, blah, blah. They never explored
really,
that at all.
Yeah.
At all. So it was a little disappointing. I was really hoping that she would be a little bit more Force sensitive.
And that would mean something.
That would mean something, yeah. But, because everybody was like, oh, wait till she uses the Force. But she never
does.
Never does, yeah. So.
Yeah, and they probably did that on purpose. I would bet that was like a red herring sort of a thing that they did. But, again, that just seems to me like, hey, let's dangle what the fans want in front of them and not give it to them, like Luke Skywalker.
We'll throw Luke walking by in the background and just like eating
Did you see that? That was Luke.
He's eating a churro and he's like, oh, hey, and then keeps walking.
And then the next day there's a Wikipedia page. It says Luke's churro.
Luke's churro, yeah. And you can get it autographed.
That's right
at the
freaking
yeah.
Anyway, that being said, I think especially leaning into the High Republic era.
Yeah.
I have now finished 3 High Republic era books.
Okay.
Light of the Jedi was the first one. You had read that one, right?
Yes.
And then the second one was that's going to annoy me. There are 3 in the trilogy. The third one was Fallen Star.
Okay.
The Rising Storm was the second one.
Okay.
And the third one was Fallen Star. And now I'm on to those are the big 3 novels in Phase 1 of High Republic.
All right.
And now I've moved on to the Phase 2 portion where I'm reading Eye of Darkness.
Okay.
And it's all kind of following the same storyline. Like the whole. How many of these have you read? A lot of these books?
Just one of them.
So like the whole story that what's up, dude? How you doing? The whole. Okay, you do you. Get what you gotta. You good? Later, skater. How dare you?
We had a surprise guest that didn't even come on the show, just interrupted the show.
Just adjacent. Show adjacent.
She was doing her own podcast earlier
That's
today.
Right. I'm sure she was.
Yeah.
Was it a real one or a fake one?
It was still spilling the tea, so it was a fake one.
I see. Just hit record.
I know. I want to. Well, then
you should just set it up and hit record one day.
I just have an extra mic hanging down that they don't know about. Yeah.
Anyway, so the whole High Republic era story they're telling right now is essentially, the High Republic is this time period about, between 100 years before and like 1,000 years before where we are right now.
Right.
And it's supposed to signify like the Republic at its highest, at its most powerful, at its most hubristic, and the Jedi as well. And so, like, you know, in this storyline, the big bad of the series is a group called the Nile, led by Marchion Ro or Marchion Ro. I don't know how you say it. And like, it's all about like them as the threat to the galaxy over the course of these 3 books, and essentially, it's cool because it's like signaling the downfall of the Jedi and the Republic,
Right.
well ahead of time, because it's like, hey, here's this threat. They're not that much of a threat.
Yeah,
Big
we
bad
won't
thing
worry.
happens.
Yeah, we won't worry about that.
Oh, let's
We're okay.
react. Oh, we killed him. We're all good now. Big bad things happen. And so, like, it's essentially just the Republic and the Jedi, like, acting like, oh, we got this, and not having it
And not
at
having it at all.
all. Which I think is going to play a lot into the Acolyte. Even just, like, the descriptions of things in the High Republic are like the robes that the Jedi, you see them wearing in the trailer.
Okay.
It's exactly how they had described the Jedi robes in the High Republic. They're like kind of gold trimmed and really fancy. The lightsabers in the High Republic were supposed to be a lot more intricate and like ornate and almost ornamental, because they weren't really supposed to be using them all that much.
Right, they didn't need to use them
Yeah.
that much because they were such a powerhouse.
Yeah. And then the other thing with them was like the Guardian protocols. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
So that's something that I don't know when they added this to Star Wars lore, but apparently the Jedi have a thing called the Guardian protocol.
Okay.
And it's essentially whenever there's a dire need to the galaxy, they can enact the Guardian protocols, which speeds up the training of Padawans. It promotes Jedi from Padawan to Knight probably quicker than normal.
Okay.
And it intensifies battle training. It's like when the galaxy's at war.
Sure.
It's what happened during the Clone Wars. There was
right.
the Guardian Protocol.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was it, but apparently that is what happened. And they talk about that in these books too, because the Threat of the Nile happens, and after the second book, when there's this big freaking thing, they enact the Guardian, or the third book maybe, they enact the Guardian Protocols because there's a full-on galactic scale war, and all of a sudden so many Jedi are dying, and they need to replace people like soldiers in the field.
Sure, kind of like the draft.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Honestly. So yeah, it was there's a lot of new and interesting information that makes a lot of sense, connects to today, and I think the same with like Jedi Survivor, and with I think it'll be the same with the Acolyte. Like, you won't need to read any of these books in order to get it,
Sure.
but if you do, you're
It'll
gonna be
help.
rewarded
Yeah,
for it.
yeah.
Like, you're gonna see things that you're like, oh man,
I remember, yeah.
like when in Jedi Survivor, like the first Jedi Fallen Order game, the one like it's. Have you ever played any of the Uncharted games?
Uh-huh, yeah.
So like the big thing with Jedi Survivor, it's kind of Uncharted like, you know,
Right.
you're delving into ancient ruins and finding stuff. And the first game was about the Zepho, which were like these ancient alien race of Force users that I don't know if they just decided they didn't like or they were boring, but we never heard about them ever again. But this whole second,
Kind of like midichlorians.
exactly,
Yeah.
it was like, it didn't work out. Let's see what we can
Let's
shift
see what
to.
else we can do.
So the second game, instead of like the Zepho ruins, you're exploring High Republic ruins. And so like you get all these different lore things, and like a part of the book or a part of the game is where we see an actual like a Nile attack.
Okay.
And it's like, oh, I'm reading these books right now. I know that.
I
That's
know
pretty
that,
rad.
yeah.
I know how they got
Uh-huh.
there. And like the first book, the big you might remember actually, you read the big event that happened was the Great Hyperspace Disaster. It was like this ship that like was in hyperspace and exploded, and it sent all this debris everywhere at light speed and was destroying all this crap. And so like one of the places you visit in the game is it's called the Shattered Moon, and it's a moon that's just been obliterated. Essentially,
Okay.
just pieces of it are flying everywhere. And they don't mention it, but you know, you're left to infer that this moon was destroyed by the Great Hyperspace Disaster in this book. So they do a pretty good job about rewarding people for
Yeah.
digging into that expanded lore stuff. So I think if you have not and you're looking at the Acolyte, excited about it, check out some of the stuff and you're going to be excited.
You'll be excited. I think that's what I like a lot about Star Wars, and especially now with Dave Filoni taking over. He, when Disney took over, they said everything before us is no longer
Right.
Star Wars. But now Dave Filoni's like, but there's such good stories out there, I'm going to start incorporating them into
Yep.
my stuff. So I do like that he is blurring the lines between canon and non-canon. And if you enjoy more than just watching episodes 4, 5, and 6, if you enjoy Star Wars that much that you're reading books or comics or something like that, you are rewarded in a lot of the newer movies by saying, "Oh yeah, I remember like Thrawn." Like everybody couldn't wait for Thrawn,
Right.
because they all read the books and they were like, "Yo, he's such a baddie" and all this stuff. And even in this this series that came out yesterday, the Tales of the Empire, we see there's a callback to Thrawn in here as well,
Sure.
which was awesome. And as I'm watching it, I'm like, yeah,
Yep.
you know, like. And it's the animated Thrawn, which means it's not the dad bod Thrawn.
Yeah, that's
It's-
right. He's in his full form.
yeah, it's
Not even wearing the white uniform yet.
No, yeah. So it's cool. So yeah, I do like the fact that there is so much Star Wars stuff out there that if you want to dig deeper into things, you can.
And I think part of the dynamic shift that's happening too is like, you know, in the old expanded universe, it was like, all right, we had 3 movies, and the last one came out in 85, and that's it.
Yeah.
And so like after 1985, between 85 and like 2000 or like whatever it was, when 1999 when Phantom Menace came out, the main driver behind the Star Wars lore and the Star Wars story was the books and the
Right.
comics.
Yeah.
Like that's where all the big stuff happened. Like I don't know, like the big galaxy shaping things, huge stories with galaxy wide implications. Once the Disney brand took over and they kind of rebooted and started making more stuff and churning stuff out, you know, they still had these things, but the books became more small scale because they
Yes.
couldn't, like we talked about with John Jackson, like you can only do so much, but you know, you can't kill this person.
Yeah, you
know what
can't
I
kill
mean?
this guy. You can't, you know,
You can't like do
but it
this.
is
mess
funny
this
when
up.
they create a new character because you're like, oh, this
Yeah.
is a new guy.
Here's a red shirt.
Here's
Yeah.
a red shirt. So,
But the great thing about the High Republic era now is that kind of the books are the main driving force behind this era right now.
right.
So like they're doing these huge, wide-scaping stories that have huge implications from the
Yeah.
galaxy, and then they're able to influence the other media through that.
Right.
And they've been able to do it so far in a way that's like, because even the books, like if you just read the books, you're still missing out.
Yes.
Because there's all these, like the novels are more geared towards people our age, and they're pretty good.
Yeah.
Like these novels are actually, there are terrifying parts of it. Like parts of these
Okay.
books are like, especially when you're listening to someone read it, it scares the hell out of me. And it's clearly meant for, and this is the sort of Star Wars I have wanted for a while.
Right.
But they make young adult novels and stuff
Yeah.
like that, and they continue to move the lore. Like in the High Republic books, the novel series, they're talking about the Drengir threat.
Okay.
And the Drengir are like this sentient plant life that is like imbued by the Force that's been wreaking havoc on many different worlds.
Okay.
And it's like spoken as like an ancillary event. Like people mention it in these books about, oh,
Sure.
you know, this is like the Drengir, but like the whole young adult novels are focused on the Drengir
Okay.
and the threat they pose to the galaxy.
Right, but then in the adult books, they go back to it. They
Yeah.
talk to
And
you
so
about
like if you, I haven't read them yet, but like I've been reading about them, and like if you are reading the book, you can point to these moments where like, oh, they're referencing
Yeah.
what happened in this young adult. So like they're I don't know. It's
Yeah.
I feel like they have a lot more freedom, and at the same time they're doing a really good job at like weaving things together.
Sure, without killing Chewbacca.
Without killing Chewbacca. And
Exactly.
Chewie's probably alive. No, maybe not.
Because how old?
He
How
was
old
like
did
200.
they say he was?
like 100.
200.
Yeah, 250. Yeah, he wasn't.
Yeah, he
alive.
wasn't alive
Anyway,
yet.
he's an
Yeah.
old guy. That being said,
and also like when we saw Solo the movie, that's when Han first met Chewie, and Chewie was not like a freedom fighter at the time. He was just a Wookiee.
Right.
So if he somehow is back with this, I think it would be a little weird
Yeah.
for him to go from that to then what happened in Solo for them, then what happens in A New Hope.
yeah, and
So-
that's the other great thing about where they're going with the Acolyte and this whole era is that they're not beholden to that crap anymore. You know?
Right.
It's like we don't have to worry about where was Han during this time. It's not
Yeah.
going to interfere. The only person they really have to worry about is Yoda, because Yoda's around somewhere
Yeah,
doing his
Yoda's,
thing,
and I mean he's 900 years old. He's been a Jedi for 700 years at least,
and he's on the
probably.
council. So
he's
like
on the
he's an
council,
important
yeah.
dude during this era.
So we'll probably
see him. I'd
see
imagine.
him, or they'll make reference to him.
And that's the thing that annoys me with the books too. Is like I get it, like they want to try it. They're telling a different story. They're avoiding, but like they mention Yoda on several occasions. I'm like, just show us Yoda.
yeah,
It's cool that
Yeah.
he's Yoda. It's Yoda, but like just they're like, oh, Is Master Yoda going to be there? No, Master Yoda's away on a trip.
Right.
Come on.
Just include him. Yeah.
Then don't
Or even-
mention him at all.
Yeah. Even like some of the other books, like when we were talking before about like some of the Thrawn books where they make Thrawn out to be such an intellect, and in doing so, they're making Darth Vader
Look like an idiot.
Look like an idiot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, we can't. He's not. Like he can't be that as well. Like as Anakin, was he very emotional? Yes, but I don't think
He also wasn't an idiot. He
Yeah,
wasn't necessarily
an
a
idiot.
genius.
Yeah.
But he was smart. Like he was
smart,
really good
yeah.
with machines and
Yeah.
flying. Like
Yeah.
the newer Thrawn books did make him seem to be a bit of a nincompoop.
Yeah. So
That's the word for it.
that's the
nincompoop.
word for it. All right, so we're gonna review all 6 episodes because they were very long.
Oh,
Each
yeah.
one was like
Well, they
so-
were almost the length of a Mandalorian episode. Don't you
Yeah,
know?
so this is what maybe it has to do with the production.
I feel like it has to. It must just take so long to make
Yeah.
these things, maybe,
Um,
because they're great. But
they're great.
I want each of them to be one 45-minute episode,
right.
and I want them to release 6 of them.
Yeah. Yeah,
An
like
episode,
like they
like, you know what I mean?
basically
Like-
released 2 episodes. One about
2.5 episodes.
2.5
right? Or,
episodes.
like-
One about Morgan Elsbeth,
And one
then
about
one
Barriss.
about Barriss. Yeah, and they did it before with the Tales
of the
of the
Jedi.
Tales of the Jedi as well. But it's just, I don't know. It reminds me, not reminds me of, but it's just like just the fact that they were 15-minute episodes, and you're watching opening credits, closing credits. Now, once putting it on Disney Plus, and it did skip a little bit of that, so you didn't have to watch all of
Right.
it. But like at the same time, it's like, okay, there's 500 people who worked on episode 1. Were there 500 different people that worked on episode 2? Like, I'm sure in the closing credits there was probably a lot of redundant names
Right.
that we could have combined them all together. So I don't know why they do it the way they do it. I'm not a producer. I don't, have the whatever, but they could have just done it in. It would have been a nice
Especially since they're
mini
releasing them all
series.
at once.
Yeah, they
like
released all of them
It'd be
at
one
once.
thing if they were releasing them weekly, but like
Yeah,
why make us go through all the credits for? You're right.
6 times.
We're kind of going to this in a negative. I thought they were good. I really
Yeah.
liked them. I like the premise. For me, it seems like a good way to take characters that it would be weird and shoehorned for them to like work in some of their origin or some of their story into one of the other
into
mediums.
another
But
show.
if they just
yeah.
took 3 episodes and just focused on them, they can
Yeah.
tell that story really well. I liked the Barriss story more than the Morgan Elsbeth story, but not much. I thought they were both pretty good.
Right.
Um,
I felt the Barriss story was a better, because it had a better redemption arc.
had an
so
arc.
it had a good
I think
flow to it.
I think that was the point, though. I think that they are purposely juxtaposed against each other because they're both people who fall to darkness. They're both people who want revenge, and through the 3 episodes each, we see you can go one way, which is to learn from your mistakes, like reflect
Yeah.
and realize what's going on, and not let your fear guide and rule and dominate your future. And then there's the other way, which is to go ahead and keep
just be
pushing into
angry
that,
and just, yeah.
and that's where we see their divergent paths. They have similar origins. They're people getting destroyed. They're disillusioned.
Their families been taken from them.
But Morgan, takes that anger and continues to fuel it, whereas Barriss kind of looks back and she mentions it at the end of her thing. She's like, a darkness took me.
Yeah.
Which I guess
Yeah.
is her kind of way of coming to terms in the future with the fact that she thought back and went, because she in the moment didn't think she was wrong. She didn't.
Right.
She wasn't evil ever. You know what I mean? You think about Barriss.
she was following a good soldier follows orders. The
Right.
Clone Wars thing. So she was following orders. She thought the Empire was She was sold on the story that the Empire was going to be doing good
Right.
for the whole galaxy. So she bought in on it.
And it's just like her origin story. She didn't think when she was doing what she was doing in the Clone Wars that she was evil. She thought the Jedi were corrupt,
Right.
and she was trying to. She was wrong,
Yeah.
misguided, whatever. But again, she was never doing it as like I'm an evil killer.
Yeah.
She wasn't that kind of person.
No,
She was
no.
she was misguided.
Misguided, right. So I want to do a little bit of deep dives first, a little about the characters.
Let's get into it.
In episode 1, Morgan Elsbeth is battling against General Grievous. And I wanted to know more about this Grievous character because, like, we've seen him a lot, and we know who he is, and we know that he's a bad guy and a general in the Empire and all that stuff. But I was like, what is he? What is this? So I went to Wikipedia, I should say, and he's a Kaleesh male.
Yeah, the
warlord.
The droid part of him is not part of him, right? That's from
the
thing.
That's which is funny because the way they worded in here, it brings it back to the Obi-Wan. Nope, the Boba Fett series with the biker gang who was all about getting
the augments or whatever.
The droid augmentations and stuff. So Kaleesh, I'm hoping I'm saying the Caleesh.
Yeah, Kaleesh.
Yeah, Kaleesh. Kaleesh were a reptilian sentinel species from the wild space world of Kalee and were formidable warriors not known for their kindness and typically concealed their features behind traditional war masks, which is what that skull is a war mask that he wears on top of his face. Frequently crafted from the skulls of fearsome beasts in their homeworld. Despite their technological inferiority, they engaged in conflicts, notably against their planetary neighbors, the Huk. The most notorious members of this species, General Grievous, fought as supreme marital commander of the separatist droid armies during the Clone Wars. So I was very confused as to how he had a bone face, and now I learned that it was a mask that he wore. And then also going back to the details on Grievous, it says, became fearsome warrior, war against same things. Grievous and continued his conquest quickly. Oh, his original name was Quaimian J. Shalala.
I have a cousin named that.
You do. I met her. She's really nice.
Wonderful.
Eventually took the name of Grievous and continued his conquest, quickly become a warlord, earning a bloody reputation for his homeworld. Gathering together, Grievous traveled and fought alongside a group of personal bodyguards, the Izvorkia. For years, they shared in his victories and a love of battle as well. Grievous's potential was seen by the Sith Lord Darth Sidious and Darth Tyrannus, also known as Dooku,
Count Dooku,
the Count of Sereno, Monte Cristo, as he held his people in a merciless war against the Yarmari. In time, Grievous led the Kaleesh forces with his ferocity and determination, brutally punishing the insect species from his homeworld. However, the Galactic Republic and Jedi Order interfered. Blah, blah, blah. It says somewhere that, here it is, sometimes later, members of the Executive Separatist Council of the newly formed Confederacy of Independent Systems, led by Dooku, conspired to mortally wound Grievous in a bid to convert him into a super cyborg, subverting to their cause. Dooku's agents sabotaged Grievous's shuttle, which resulted in a gruesome crash that left the man on the brink of death. Grievous was offered conversion into an enhanced cybernetic being by the Sith, who were interested in experimenting with technologically advanced beings. His remaining vital organs implanted into a powerful robotic body. After the majority of his organic body was destroyed, but over time he gradually started to make considerable improvements to his cybernetic body. So that's where and when he lost his most 90% of his Kaleesh body and became this battle cyborg. And Kaleesh normally only have 2 arms and 2 legs, but as we know, Grievous,
he's got a couple more.
Yeah. So yes, so that was when we saw him on the screen in the first episode, hunting down and fighting Morgan Elsbeth. I was like, you know what? I don't know enough about him. Now I do. And now so do you. Thanks
So
to
do
me,
we
because
all.
I am awesome.
Way to go, Rob.
Yep, there we go. So Morgan Elsbeth. Now, the only thing I didn't like about this series was, I'm just going to bluntly say it like this. Why?
Why are we
Why do we care about these two? That's the only thing that I said to myself was like,
I have definitely heard many people asking about what happened to Barris.
okay,
I don't know that I've heard a whole lot of people clamoring for a Morgan Elsbeth origin story.
right.
But definitely there has been some chatter about, what happened to Barris after Order 66. I think there was some stuff out there about maybe she had died, but that was retconned.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, there's other. I don't know. For me, it's less why these two and more why only these two.
Right.
But again, I think
Yeah.
it might have to do with production. I know that animation takes so long to do.
Yeah. And the animation in this was very clean. Very.
It was, although I did take note of the fact that all of the fight animation was your standard animation. It wasn't like a motion cap.
the motion
Like
capture.
we didn't have
okay.
any of those scenes where we had motion capture like we have in the past, which was fine. You know, it never. But then I get, whenever I see one of those motion cap, it's clear like, oh, this is gonna be a good fight.
real. Yeah, it's gonna be a good fight. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I guess I see what they're doing. You know, they just finished their first season of Thrawn. I'm betting we're gonna see in Ahsoka season 2. This is gonna have
Right.
implications.
Yeah.
With more because a lot of Morgan Elsbeth's thing is, first of all, I didn't know there was light side Night Sisters.
No.
That was news to me. It's pretty
Yeah.
cool. But apparently they have been mentioned in the past. I think the first mention of them is actually in the book you read, The Courtship of Princess Leia.
Actually, yes. Now that you say that, that is true because they were helping Luke and Leia. They were like teaming up with them.
That's actually
To
the first
fight
book
against.
that they mentioned Night Sisters in. That's what brought Night Sisters into canon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they've been around, but I guess I didn't realize, and then I saw it. I'm like, that makes sense. Like we see these Night Sisters that use this magic,
Right.
but it's just the Force, but it's another way of accessing the Force. So
Yeah.
clearly there must be a light side counterpart to it. You know what I mean?
So it was funny because as I was reading it, I didn't think too much into it, but I was just like, there were, Night Sisters. I was like, oh, but then they were like taking care of them, and
Right.
I was like, maybe it's just because they are in a feud with the other Night Sisters,
the Mountain Tribe.
the Mountain
right?
Tribe. So I was like, okay, whatever. But now, after seeing this, we see, okay, they were actually good Night Sisters and bad Night Sisters.
And
but yeah,
This is another one of those moments where, number one, reading the books like gives you that little tiny extra payoff. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, you can make that connection. But also where, what's a freaking Dave Filoni is taking something from that.
taking
and
something from it,
bringing it, putting it
yeah,
on screen.
Yep. So, real fast, Morgan Elsbeth was a Force-sensitive human female Night Sister and industrialist who was instrumental in the construction of the Imperial Navy during the regime of the Galactic Empire, and a dedicated follower of Grand Admiral Mithral,
Mithron Uodo.
Mithron Uodo, yep, which we all know as
Thrawn.
Thrawn. After the fall of the Empire, Morgan sought to return Thrawn to the galaxy and lead an army along with the aid of Imperial sympathizers to achieve this.
So here's the thing with it. So like, the big moment in with Captain Pelion, and again, as soon as we saw the TIE Defender,
Yes.
I knew, all right, we're
Yep.
gonna have Thrawn in here somewhere. And
Yeah,
then that
because she
Pelion
was
hopped
she was
in.
designing it, and then
Yeah.
it was pretty neat.
Yeah, I like the way they did that.
I like how once again this is a typical Thrawn storyline where the other Imperial people are like, "You're an idiot, and we're not doing this," and then Thrawn is
yeah.
like,
Wait a
"I see
minute,
what you're doing
I got
here.
you here.
I got you." Yeah.
But Pelion, he asked that question, "Why are you doing this?" And she goes, "For the glory of the Empire." And he's like, "Nah."
Now,
you're
why
lying.
why are you really
Yeah.
doing this?
And then when Thrawn calls her on it, she's like, for revenge and all this stuff. If you like pull that line forward into Ahsoka season 1, and you think about like the political things that are going on, Morgan is trying to get to Thrawn, all this stuff, but it's like, why is Morgan fighting for the Empire? Like she says for revenge, but the Empire is
Yeah, the Empire's what did
it.
Yeah.
So it's not, if you think about it that way, she's using the Empire to find more Night Sisters
Right.
That's her goal.
That's her goal.
It's not to align
Yeah.
with the Empire. It's not glory to the Empire. It's and you carry that through. She gets to whatever the freaking world is. I forget.
Yeah, and they were showing that too, like in this.
Yeah.
Like that's the village that she was in there, where everybody's like, "Oh, please, you promised us," when she was selling the plans.
Oh, that was in the town where she fought Ahsoka in The Mandalorian.
In the Mandalorian,
Right.
yes.
But then when they go to that alternate world with the new Night Sisters on it, right? In Ahsoka,
right, yeah. In Ahsoka, yeah.
That's more, I think, her end game. You know what I mean? Like she's been working with the Empire all these years, but she says she wants revenge. Now she's found more Night Sisters, and we even see in Ahsoka season 1, the Night Sisters aren't cool with Thrawn.
No.
Really, like there's that one part where they're bombing the temple, and they're like, oh, I don't want them to bomb that temple.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think we're gonna see, she worked with Thrawn for all these years, and she said she wants revenge. She's not doing it for the Empire. She wants revenge, and I think we'll see some of that.
Yeah, 100%. So those 3 episodes did have a lot of good callbacks. One, learning more about her relationship with Thrawn. Also, when the Mountain Night Sisters took her in, and then they're I don't want to say training her or whatever they were doing with her, but then like the Mother Night Sister was like, "Oh, you I see bad things for you." And it was really cool cinematography wise, because she's like, and she's standing in front of fire, it's like, yeah, you're like the devil or whatever type of thing, like.
And that scene is mirrored at the end of the season.
Yes,
because at the end of the series, she's standing in front of her own town that she set on fire.
That she set on fire,
and with fire behind her. And interesting again cinematography for like
a cartoon. Yeah, for a 45-minute episode of a cartoon. Yeah. But yeah, and the callback to her town that was in The Mandalorian, as well as seeing her really go into Thrawn and becoming a good, not number one, but a good ally to Thrawn in the beginning. So it was neat. It was a good storyline. It wasn't anything drastic, I would say. Like we learned a little bit about her. We learned, why she's so angry.
Yeah, we caught her motivations. That's about all we really caught.
But that's all we really got out of that. And then the next 3 episodes were all about Barriss Offee. Is that how you say her last name?
Yep.
And so it was funny. Like, I have such a bad memory. Like, I remember seeing, the yellow skin and the tattoos and stuff like that, but I couldn't remember where or when or whatever.
Right.
So she's also... and I like how this has been updated since
it was released.
It was released, yeah. Also known under the title of the Healer later in her life, was a Force-sensitive Miriella female and a Jedi Knight that fell to the dark side of the Force during the period of the Clone Wars. Trained as a Padawan under Jedi Master Luminaria
Syndulla?
Yep. Offee wielded a blue lightsaber that she used when participating in the first battle of Geonosis. She preferred studying ancient Jedi texts to fighting. During her time as a Jedi Padawan, Offee forged a friendship with Ahsoka Tano, the Padawan of Anakin Skywalker. Though rather differently in personalities, the two bonded through their shared experiences in combat, including at the Second Battle of Geonosis. As the Clone Wars continued, Offee grew disillusioned with the Jedi's role in the conflict, believing they had strayed from the ideals that the Jedi Order was supposed to represent, becoming particularly wary of the Jedi Council. Deciding to act on her concerns, she orchestrated the bombing of the Jedi Temple as a means to foment further distrust of the Jedi. Despite their previous friendship, she allowed Tano to be framed for orchestrating the bombing, even going as far as impersonating a former Sith apprentice Asajj Ventress to frame her former friend. Skywalker ultimately ended up catching Offee and bringing her to justice. Offee finally confessed just moments before Tano was convicted of the crime. Clearing the Togrutta's name, Offee expressed her views of the Jedi Order in front of the Tribune, showing that she had been corrupted by the dark side before being taken away. So that's all what happened during the Clone Wars. And now after reading that, I go, oh yeah, I do remember that's who she was.
Yep.
But this was a much different story. Like, this really went into afterwards, I guess, right, when she was then, because who were the Sith? They weren't Sith, but the Inquisitors, yes. So she gets like captured by the Inquisitors and taken in, and basically what the Jedi does, or what the Sith do so often, is, mess with your mind and manipulate your mind into thinking that the good guys are bad and you are now the good guy. You are not the bad guy. You are doing the right things. They were saying things like, the Jedi can only teach you so much. We're going to teach you how to be complete.
Right.
And, leaning it that way. And so then she becomes and starts helping out the Inquisitors. And
so the whole thing with that, I mean, so they started off in her cell, right? And she sees the Jedi Temple during Order 66. And then she's brought to the Fortress Inquisitorius, which is under construction.
Right.
Yeah. We've seen that in several. We saw it in Obi-Wan. We saw it in a couple different things. And right now in the time period where we're at, it's still under construction. And she's brought to this place with 2 other Jedi. And usually the thing with Inquisitors, right? They don't just say, "Hey, you're a Jedi, be an Inquisitor."
Right.
They find the ones that they know. They're questioning the Jedi.
Yes.
They're unsure. They're doubting their beliefs. And so the 3 of them, Barriss and these other 2, are 3 people that clearly they judged. All right, these 3 might be able to be convinced.
Yeah.
And so but like Barriss, her whole thing was she thought the Jedi were on the wrong track. And so it wasn't hard to convince her. The only thing with her was she was actually convinced that they were not on the right track. She wasn't convinced that, and it twisted her necessarily, but so when she saw she wanted to be a Jedi,
right?
But what she thought the ideal of the Jedi was,
yes.
And so you saw her going on Inquisitor missions and trying to talk to people and
because
reason with them.
Yeah. So even in going backwards, when they brought those 3 people in, then it became just 2 at the end. They go, "Okay, you're our final 2,"
right?
And they throw
a lightsaber,
one lightsaber down, and they go, "Okay, now you guys have to battle to the death, and whoever wins will get to, you'll get to be a part of us."
It's like that scene from Dark Knight.
Yeah,
he snaps the pool cue in half.
Yeah, and the other person was like, "Oh, we're not going to do it," and it was neat because the force field, you could see it as it was shrinking in, like in Fortnite. It was burning the ground, and she was like, "Look, I don't want to die." So,
and she choked him. It wasn't even as clean as picking up a lightsaber and defending herself.
No,
she had to. She snapped his neck.
Yeah,
it was pretty dark.
Deep. It was dark. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then which fast forward to the end when the Inquisitor finds her again.
It's the 4th sister.
The 4th sister finds her, and then she's battling her without a lightsaber.
And that was pretty clearly a direct callback to her fight with the Grand Inquisitor, where he's fighting without a lightsaber. He says you're something cloud or makes you predictable, and then at the end she says your anger makes you predictable.
Yeah. So it was a neat callback there as well. But then going back to what you were saying, she's going on all these Inquisitor missions, and they told her, "We are doing good by stopping all of these uprisings," basically. Right. And she was like, "Okay, well, we can stop these uprisings without killing people." And they're like, "Nope, you got to kill them all."
It's not our thing.
And she's like, "No, but why do we didn't need to do that?" And then you could see the cracks starting to appear where she was like, "Okay, this isn't the bag of goods I was sold on."
Right.
And to the point where it was a good twist when she goes, "Well, there's still one more Jedi that you need to kill then." And it was also cool. She Force just pushed her, snuck her, right off the edge, and then escaped. And I was like, okay, that's her now turning to the good side again, going back to the light side. So yeah, and it was fun when they brought the children. I forget how it ended. Where
there was the kid who needed the healer.
Yes.
Right?
Oh yeah, and
then
then
she
she's the
essentially
healer.
turned into a shaman.
Yeah. She was like almost like Luke
Yeah.
in episodes 7, 8, and 9.
Now, here's something I saw that people are kind of speculating on because we see this. There's clearly been a time jump
Right.
for Barris,
Yes.
not for the fourth sister.
No.
Like, the fourth sister looked
Fourth sister.
exactly the same.
She ages a lot
But
differently.
Barris looks like she's been like just beaten in the face
Yeah.
for a couple hours. But the thought there is that was purposefully done
Okay.
because like we see like she's the healer, right? So she's been
Yeah.
using the Force to heal people, and we see Daisy Ray specifically mentions that it's a life essence transfer. You're transferring some of your life into
so
them.
she's
And Kylo did it so much that he died. So maybe
Yes.
she's been doing this for X many years,
right.
and that's her way of penance. Is I'm giving my life,
I'm giving
little
my
by
life
little
to
away.
all these people who need help.
Yeah, and so by the time this fourth sister finds her and tracks her down, she's been prematurely aged because of it.
Sure. Yeah.
And which of course won't matter. Age shouldn't be a thing in Star Wars that matters as far as like your
Right. Your
fighting
skill
prowess
yeah,
or anything like
yeah.
that. Which is why she's able to still kind of dip, dodge, and everything. But she does look a little.
Looks a little bit
little
older
weary.
because
Little weary.
her Force was pulling out all of her life essence.
Mhm.
So, yeah. So they were good.
I don't think Barris is dead. I think we would have
No.
seen if Barris was dead. So I'm sure we're going to see more of Barris
Yes.
at some point. But yeah, I like the Barris episodes. I like the way they tied in.
Yeah, and I like. I don't know. I'm a sucker for a good redemption story.
Sure.
And she had more of a redemption story than Morgan Elsbeth did. But by the time we see Morgan Elsbeth in Ahsoka and Mandalorian, like she's still angry.
Yeah,
so,
we know she's a villain.
She's
Yeah,
a
for
villain.
sure.
She's never going to be
Barris
a
has
good
always
guy.
been more complicated than
Yeah.
that.
So they were fun. They were good episodes. Like I said, why, and you said why not more?
Yeah.
Which is similar. Like
I love the concept. I love what they're doing with it.
yeah,
I would like more than just 2 of these characters every year. You know what
right.
I mean? Like,
Tales of what was the first one?
The
Tales
Jedi.
of the Jedi.
I think the way they're doing it, it seems like every other year they're dropping one of these on May 4th. Because last year it was season 2 of Visions.
Right.
And I think the year before that it was season 1 of
Tales of the Jedi came out in 2022.
Yeah. On May the 4th?
It just says 2022. It doesn't say the release date. Oh no, October 26th.
Okay. So it wasn't a May 4th
Yeah,
release.
so it wasn't a May
Okay.
4 release. But yeah, like I don't know. I can't imagine it taking 2 years to make these cartoons.
Yeah.
Maybe it did. I don't know, but I would like to see more.
Yeah.
I mean, these 2 characters were good. I really could care less about Morgan Elsbeth. It was nice to see it, but whatever. I would have rather seen somebody else who we have
Give me a
had.
Mace Windu origin story.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
give me
like something that
a-
we've had more time with. You
Yeah.
know, something that we care more about.
My assumption is it's all about setting up what's next.
Yeah,
So my
I can
guess
see
is
that.
they did Morgan Elsbeth because, hey, this is going to be important for...
Right, for the next Thrawn
Yeah.
or whatever. So.
Yeah. Which is, I get, but at a certain point, it's like, that's fine. Do that plus all the other things we like.
Right. Like throw in somebody else in it with it as well.
Yeah.
Like give us somebody else as well. Give us.
And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm betting we see Barris in Ahsoka Season 2.
I can see that because she was a good friend of Ahsoka.
And at the end of that, when they talk about sending, like, oh, I have a contact I can send you to when they're talking to the family.
Right.
I mean, it seems like it might
Right. Like she could be sending her
Ahsoka.
to Ahsoka. Yeah.
Like it seems like it would make sense that maybe if she's done this and she's kind of made her peace, she might have reached out to Ahsoka and like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Who was we saw the bounty hunter that came in Bad Batch. What the heck was her name? There was like a preview. In the preview, we saw her. We were like, "Oh, she's coming." She was in one episode of the Bad Batch.
Asajj Ventress?
Yeah, Asajj Ventress. Yeah. So it's gonna be something like that where it's gonna be a one episode story arc cameo or something like that of whatever. So, but it'll be worth it.
Yep.
So.
All right. Well, that was Tales of the
Tales
Empire.
of the Empire.
Not TAIL. The Empire doesn't have long fluffy tails. Some of them might.
It'd be cool if they
Some
did.
of them might.
Yeah. I mean, there is a Wookiee, but Wookiees don't have tails either.
they don't,
Oh.
do they?
Did you see? There was a meme, and it said, "What does What does Chewbacca have down there? Is he like a dog where he has a red rocket or?
Oh no. I don't want to. There are certain things that I don't want to know, and knowing the internet,
I know, yeah.
you can find
Oh
out.
yeah, you'll find. Yeah, the people will make AI images of whatever it is.
Dude, I downloaded a 2-hour trial for Baldur's Gate 3. You ever play Baldur's Gate when you were younger?
I remember the name. I don't remember if I played it.
So
or
Baldur's
not.
Gate 3, my students rave about it. They say you got to
Okay.
play Baldur's Gate. It's very well rated. So I tried the 2-hour version, the trial, and it is a good game.
Okay.
The character creation
Okay.
is ridiculous.
Okay.
You ever hear about, there's these character creations and you can change so much.
Right.
There are 6 different genital options.
Oh my goodness.
Literally, it says which genitals, and you get to pick.
Oh jeez.
And you look at each one, and you go, do I want that piece of genital?
Oh gosh.
Or do you want this genital or that type of genital? Which type? Okay, this type of genital. How do you want this type of genital to look?
Oh my gosh.
And it's like, my students told me to play this
Yeah,
game.
yeah. Like
What
I'm
the
being
hell?
you're like, guys, do you remember the character creation?
Oh, maybe that's why they're telling me. Like,
Yeah,
we
you're
made
like-
this help you play the game.
Yeah, we're like, ah.
Oh boy. Anyway, so I don't know how I got at that, but it's about time.
It is. Well, it's because we're an hour and 10 into it, so it's definitely about time.
It's about that
too.
way.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll be back soon. We're going to be talking more about the ending of Bad Batch. I want to talk a little bit about Jedi Survivor, talk some High Republic books,
And the Accolade's coming out soon.
and the
so,
Acolyte, and we got to
yeah.
start putting up missing posters for Rob's beard.
That's right. I finally shaved it off.
So
yeah.
it's a little bit there, but
Yeah, I mean, I shaved it weeks ago, and it's, whatever. So
But either way, from all of us here in
Bantam Milk headquarters,
That
right
one,
behind
right
Nick's
there.
shoulder there.
we have spoken.
We have spoken.